The strategy focus drill, that's much more subjective. We're trying to like mimic some scenario or just shoot to get the best score we can on the drill as it's presented. And in that case, it's much more subjective, like whether it's better to lose a couple points and go faster or vice versa, if that makes sense. But starting off this morning, right, we are in skill mode. So when we're structuring our training in general, at least 40 to 50% of your training is going to be spent in skill mode. We have some very specific fundamental thing that you want to work on, and you're going to be working on it the way we're talking about, right? Where it's not like, oh, well, yeah, that was okay, except I had an Alpha Charlie. It's like, no, it's either, the assessment is basically it's either perfect or it's fucked, right? And there's really nothing in between, because we want to have very hard standards for ourselves when we're trying to build skills. We have any questions so far? It's been pretty simple so far. So we have targets in the back. They're basically marked. One's blank, one's black, all the way across. That's to make it a little bit easier for you guys to communicate and make sure you're not sharing targets as we go. The first drill we're going to shoot from as far back as we can get, so we'll peel right back all the way to the shelter right here. So everyone got ammo? We're going to draw and shoot 2 alpha, right? That's it. We're going to do that as fast as we can. For this first whole set, like, we want to shoot the points at all costs. And then we'll talk about how to do it a little bit faster after. Okay, so I'll just show you exactly what I'm looking for. I'm going to do probably 4 reps right here. Make ready. Ready, stand by. Ready, stand by. Stand by. Do one more. Ready, stand by. Any questions so far? What do we notice about that? Any observations?
Smooth and controlled.
Yeah, right. Like the draw, I'm not slowing down the draw just because the shooting is challenging, right? You notice the pacing of the shooting. Like I'm trying to see the same type of sight input for both shots. Right, so at this distance, we're at about maybe 18, maybe 20 yards or so. Right, I can probably get away with a little bit of sight motion if my grip is perfect and if I apply a really good trigger press, right? But otherwise, like we're gonna want all 3 fundamentals: the vision, in terms of sight confirmation, the grip, and the trigger press all needs to be pretty good, like very high quality fundamentals in order to consistently get the points that we want. Okay, so we'll talk about that in more detail, but I think first we should. The strategy focus drill, that's much more subjective. We're trying to like mimic some scenario or just shoot to get the best score we can on the drill as it's presented. And in that case, it's much more subjective, like whether it's better to lose a couple points and go faster or vice versa, if that makes sense. But starting off this morning, right, we are in skill mode. So when we're structuring our training in general, at least 40 to 50% of your training is going to be spent in skill mode. We have some very specific fundamental thing that you want to work on, and you're going to be working on it the way we're talking about, right? Where it's not like, oh, well, yeah, that was okay, except I had an Alpha Charlie. It's like, no, it's either, the assessment is basically it's either perfect or it's fucked, right? And there's really nothing in between, because we want to have very hard standards for ourselves when we're trying to build skills. We have any questions so far? It's been pretty simple so far. So we have targets in the back. They're basically marked. One's blank, one's black, all the way across. That's to make it a little bit easier for you guys to communicate. Stand by. Ready? Stand by. We talked about that briefly just now. It's critical that we look to a small spot on the target, and we're also going to talk about the sight confirmation, basically how much movement we're allowing to be in the sight at the moment we commit to fire. Right, so at this distance, like we talked about, a little bit of motion you can probably get away with, and the other fundamentals are really good. Your grip, right, you guys are pretty much all doing some version of what I think is agreeable. So basically, you know, you get your firing hand goes on the gun, so with a neutral wrist angle, it's like buried in your pointed at the base of your wrist, right? I peel this thumb up high, and that makes a space where my support hand can fill in, and I try to grip really hard with my left hand. Right? You guys are all doing some version of that already. Right? And the trigger is not going to matter that much at this distance, so we're not going to talk about that yet. What we should talk about is the upper body posture in terms of what all your joints are doing when you're shooting. Right? So you'll see when I mount the gun, basically I try to get the gun as far away from my face as I can using my arms, right? And I try to bring my shoulders to neutral and then just unlock my elbows so that they're not hyperextended. And you see when I do this, right, my elbow is pointed like at a 45-degree angle downward that way, right? So any deviation from this, where I start to go up really high or bring the gun closer to my face one way or another, right, that's going to manipulate that joint when the gun recoils. And that's going to make it so the gun goes a lot higher, and I have to push it back down to the spot, like manually every shot. So I want to try to get my arms pretty straight with about a 45, so that if the gun's going to lift this whole system, it's going to lift at the shoulder, right? And that motion is going to be much, much more subtle. But if I start to let those things bend, I'm going to start to push the gun back to the spot, and that's where we're going to end up with the vertical striping on the target that you're seeing in some cases here. All right, good to go? Yep. I'll walk up and talk to you specifically if you're doing what I'm talking about. So let's showed you guys, right, is 2 seconds for that drill. Okay, we would usually do it at 25 yards, probably a solid 5 yards farther than that. We want to be able to get at least keep it on the box in that amount of time, right? And again, like I said right in the beginning, it's critical that we force ourselves to get the hits first, to pitch a nice tight concentric group, however long it takes, and then you can start trying to speed up the motion of the draw and see what breaks apart, right? But I think to work on the marksmanship first, we'll do a slightly different drill to kind of get ourselves rowing in the right direction a little bit better. So we usually do this on 5-yard increments. We'll start at 10 because I think this group's a little more advanced. But I'm basically going to draw and fire 5, and I want to see I'm committed to see the same type of sight picture every single time, right? So I'm gonna try to look at a nice small spot like that letter A or some visible detail in the middle of the target, right? And when I want to wait to see the same type of sight behavior every time. So maybe starting off, it's the sight stops and then I shoot immediately, right? So I'll show you how that looks. Eyes and ears. Stand by. Doing it that way where the sight just barely has time to pause before I fire. Obviously I can do like a 1 or 2 inch group at this distance and probably like roughly a fist size group out to about 20-25 yards, right? Probably going to be more practical for this, right, to work with a slightly more moving sight picture, as long as we anticipate when it's going to touch that spot we want to hit. That should still work fine, right? So that'll look more like this. Really never stops moving, right? Like it's kind of bouncing and falling on that spot the entire time. The important part with this, the rules of the drill, very important to the procedure, is that we're visually dedicated to see something specific before we fire, right? Like I'm focused on trying to look at that spot and see the sight just about to touch it, and that's when I shoot, right? It's very tempting to fall into just knowing it can go pop, 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 pop. And you do that by paying attention to how it sounds or how it feels with your hand. We don't want to do that, right? This is not a build drill where we're trying to push a certain time. We want to see the detail and react to that. Okay, so that's super important. Good to go? Yeah. We'll start in the 10 right here. Good. This is like a small version of what we call a seatbelt pattern, right? Where basically, if we look at the shape of this group, it's kind of stretched from one shoulder down to the other hip, right? And it's a relatively tight group, but it's still shaped that way, right? This is going to tell us usually that the support hand is not locked on the gun all that well, so the gun is moving around inside that hand, and possibly the wrist lock needs to improve as well, right? So you guys heard of the concept of wrist lock before? Mm-hmm. Basically, right, when you fire the gun, unless you do anything, your wrist will move this way with the gun. We got to engage this hand enough that basically when you fire, this wrist is immobilized. So you cannot train this by doing shooting stuff, in my opinion. It's just something you have to isolate, like while you're driving your car around, or waiting for a bus or whatever the fuck, I don't know. But like it's something you have to try to work on to make that happen on its own. And if you have more questions about that, we can do that. But we want to see this get down to like a fist size group, right? So we're going to do it again, and we're going to need to look at the base parts here. Most likely, if we have a group that's straying where it's like it's covering the entire A zone at this distance, one of two things are happening, right? Either you're not being disciplined to get the grip connected in a way that you know is proper to shoot a nice tight group, or you're not looking at a small spot, right? Like once you start shooting the shots, you're seeing something go wrong on your dot, and you're looking back at your hand in depth to try to figure out what it is, right? So it's critical that we take the time to don't rush the first shot time. We get the grip really good right out of the holster, even if that takes 3 seconds, And once we begin firing, we look past the optic and try to see as much detail on the surface of the target as we possibly can. And if we're all standing here looking at this, you can see the bullet holes and lines and shit on the target right now. When you're firing on it, it should continue to look like that. If you see all this surface texture go blurry, like that'll tell you that your vision is coming back to the gun or somewhere in between, right? So let's patch them up, we'll try it again.
Eyes and ears.
So 10, here's 15. Slows down like incrementally, right? Like maybe this much slower, like up to 0.05 per 5-yard increment usually, right? I'll try 22. Which is like right general idea, but that builds the habit over time of quitting on the drill and just trying to do better on the next one, right? So it's, in my opinion, it's really good to do extended duration drills where you get that chance to fail, fix it, and continue. Right? So with that, we're gonna go back to doing what we did originally. We'll hop back on the 20 and draw fire 2, right? And now we guys have shown yourself how to make this, a group like this happen, right? So we'll do that, do a set like that. We just wanna shoot a nice tidy group, and then we'll do another one. We'll try to match that par time, okay? Sort of discrete modes of shooting, okay? So we've done some stuff so far. We're still just skill focused, but we're thinking about 3 general modes of shooting. The very first drill we did, we draw and fire 2, right? Because the grip is not necessarily perfect every time, right? You have to make the sight pretty much stop and place each shot, right? And we're reacting to a very specific type of sight input, right? And we're gonna call that reactive type shooting. We did 10 yards and 15 yards, where you're sort of looking at that spot, and like when the sight's about to touch that exact point, then we fire. I think about that like it's anticipative shooting, right? Where I'm still connecting to the target visually, right? But I don't need to wait to see the exact thing, right? So with reactive shooting, where like the splits will be 0.45 or higher, anticipative shooting is going to be the range kind of in the middle, where they're like 25 up to about 40. Right, I can't start to steer the sight back a little bit, but I really don't have time to perfect it. Like once I make an observation about if it was good or not, it's going to be after the shots are already out of the gun. Right, so I don't have perfect control in that case, but we're going to shoot that way a lot. Right, for targets between 12 and 20 yards with low risk shooting, we're going to shoot that way a lot of the time. Right, so we're going to try now some more predictive shooting. Right, we're going to do doubles, which I'm sure most of you have probably done before. But the difference is the focus is going to be a little different, right? We're going to fire 4 pairs, 8 shots. You're going to fire basically pull the trigger as fast as you can for 2 rounds, and then re-aim back to the center, rinse and repeat for 4 pairs, right? But the focus is going to be simply on not pushing down on the gun, right? It's a huge problem. Most people that do doubles all the time, they take it to a place it was never really meant to be. Right, the purpose of the drill is to teach you to shoot the gun really fast without changing your grip or without jamming the gun down, right? And I think mostly because of the standards that people allege are reasonable, a lot of people take it to a place where you have to do bad shit in order to achieve the standard, right? So you hear people say stuff like 2-inch group is faster, you can pull the trigger, you know, doing doubles at 25 yards, trying to hold an A-zone, shooting predictively. Like those kinds of standards, which maybe you've heard, maybe you've attempted, like those things are going to teach you to push the gun recoils, and it's going to teach you to push the gun back to the spot faster to make it happen. Okay? So I put a stripe on the target here. I want you to aim at this stripe exactly, and the goal essentially is to go as fast as you can, but not have shots land below the spot, below the line. Okay? So we want to see a nice concentric cluster of shots, or maybe some stuff that goes a little bit low-high, but I don't want to see you pushing down on the gun. Okay, so let me show you how this will look. I'm going to go at about 7 yards. About right here. Stand by. So at that speed, right, at roughly that split, which is, for the record, 17, 18, 19, 19, right? Just under 20 splits, I can do that and pitch about a 1 or 2 inch group all day long. If I try to start to go much faster than that and try to force the sight to come back to the spot faster, I'm going to start to enter a timing game where I am forced to push the gun down out of recoil to get it back to the spot faster. And most likely, if I do 2 sets, well, I'm going to start to push some shots low, right? So to keep it real, I will try it. That was gay. That was not real. In some cases there, right, sometimes it's good. Sometimes I'm pushing down on the gun before I fire the pair and pausing myself. If I had committed to fire that, right, I might time it and fire that shot right as I start to push, but all I'm doing is counteracting that lift before the pair begins, right? So just because they land on that stripe 1 out of 4 or 5 times, that doesn't mean I'm building a good habit, right? I think we can all agree, if the purpose of the drill is to teach you to not jam down on the gun, like that is completely counter to the purpose of the drill, right? So we don't want to go at a speed where we're required to do bad shit in order to achieve a standard. We want to go as fast as we can without pushing down on the gun, right? So another good example here. You ready? Stand by. Stand by. Stand by. Do one more. Stand by. I'm not telling you, hey, slow down, right? I'm just telling you, like, if you spend a lot of time doing doubles, which a lot of people do, right, you really got to audit it to make sure you haven't lost the purpose of the drill, right? Because people will take this to a place where they're training themselves to do bad shit. Right? So we only go as fast as we can manage to not push down on the gun. We can limit. We see shots that are coming here, and the second shot is landing like 6 inches or more above that point, right? Most likely what's happening is you're going from aiming at the spot, you're focused on aiming at the spot, and at the moment you commit to fire, your attention is coming back to your hand to try to feel yourself pull the trigger quickly, right? And by doing that, you're losing that visual connection to the spot, and that's why the shots go low-high. If it's more subtle, like it's consistently a few inches high, right, maybe you can grip the gun a little bit harder with your left hand to limit how high the gun can go. But like if it's a concentric group here or like here, I'm okay with that, right? That's fine. Like that's the purpose of the drill. We make that happen as consistently and quickly as we can. Yeah. Let's give it a try.
And your vision's locked in on the black line?
Yes. Try to pick a very precise spot right on that black line.
Okay.
Drive home the point about the joints that I keep making, right? Especially about the arm position. So I'll show you a good repetition and then a bad repetition. I'll stand right here. I want you to get where you can see the gun from the side, okay? So watch basically get where you can see how much the gun is lifting here and sort of watch what my elbow is doing. This would be a good thing to slow-mo if you're running an iPhone camera over here. Okay, here we go. Ready? Stand by. Good example. Here's a bad example. You see the hand stays connected to the gun. I'm still gripping the gun full force. I'm gripping as hard as I can with this hand, but it's very obvious how much difference it is and how much the gun jumps. Right? So with a lot of experience, I can figure that out and sort of time the shots to come back to the point. You saw by the end there, they were starting to stack in even with just a string of experience. But when the gun is moving that much more, obviously I have to return it that much more every time. Right? So it's just not going to be as consistent. Like this is what we would call dynamic recoil control, where basically the gun acts and you react to push it back to the point.
Right.
Which has become very popular in this country for some reason over the last like 10 years. But if you look at the top shooters in our sport, like someone like Christian, someone like Eric, honestly any top international talent, they're all using static recoil control, where they have a nice wide base, a little bit of a forward stance, and a pretty straight arm position, right? Where they're using as much structure as possible to control the gun, right? As opposed to being a little more upright with a bent arm position where the gun bounces and returns, right? Static is going to be way more consistent. Right, the only disadvantage to this is that when you start moving around, it takes a bit more finesse to achieve that position into a position or during a transition, right? But if we're talking about fundamentals, like we want to build towards using as much static recoil control as we possibly can. Okay. We did just now, right? We're focused mostly on going fast and not pushing down the gun. And it's like sometimes it seems like no matter what you do, you can't help but do that, right? So I'm gonna show you guys kind of what happens. So I'm gonna basically, he's gonna be aimed on target, and all that's gonna happen is I'm gonna come in and pull the trigger for him. Okay, and we'll sort of see when the gun pushes down. So go to aim at that white spot, right? Grip real nice, you know, normal grip. And basically, I'm gonna pull the trigger for you. Okay? And when you do that, everything goes great. But like once I start to go faster, and when you're ready for it, it's gonna be harder to not push down on the gun, right? So I'll go again. When I go fast, can't anticipate it, it goes perfect. But when I start to go slower, when I get to 4, I'm gonna pull the trigger. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. As the faster we go, right, it becomes harder to not push down. You see they kick way down to the D when it's out of your control because you're pushing down on it. Right? Go to unload, show clear. So of course it sounds easier than it is, but like the chore is to pull the trigger with one finger, right? The problem, the reason we get these pushes is because like when you go to start pulling the trigger faster and faster, you lose that digit separation, you start pulling the trigger with the entire hand. And you know the gun's gonna lift, so like you basically clutch on the gun to push it down before the shot comes. And it takes a bit of patience, and like you kind of have to surrender to it to like let the gun go center high before you can learn to get them center. Right? And when I'm doing that, right, it probably feels like the gun's spending a lot of time high, like way more than you're used to, right? Like it feels like the gun's up around the face, like you're like, this can't be controllable. But even when I'm going pop, 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 they land right where you want. Right, so it's not easy to do, but that's what we have to do. Okay? Get someone to patch that quick. A variation on this, where I'm basically going to start with the gun loaded, aim to the target, finger in the trigger guard, but not touching the trigger. Okay? And when I hear the timer, I'm going to shoot 2. Okay.
Like hard, or it doesn't matter?
Fast, as fast as I can. I want like a second I hear that beep, I want pop, pop, as fast as I can. Okay. I'm gonna aim right there. Okay. Ready? Stand by. One more, stand by. One more again, stand by. Starting to get better now. What we notice about this is, except for the first one, they go center and then high, right?
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, right. And that's kind of what we're after. This looks quite a bit easier than it is, right? When you hear that the beep, you want to try to react to the B and beep like as fast as you can. Try to get that first shot off. If you're in the habit of doing the thing we're talking about, where you're pushing down on the gun and sort of timing the pair on the spot, it's gonna get thrown in your face really bad on this one, right? So we have to just hold the gun still, pull the trigger twice, and in a perfect world, you know, they're gonna go a little bit center, a little bit high. With a little bit more experience, maybe we can grip the gun a bit harder, limit how high the gun can run, and they'll start to come more center. But if you're in the habit of fighting with the gun, they're gonna go center low or low low every single time. Okay, let's try it. What we're after is to shoot really fast and not have your grip change, not push down on the gun. Doing it the way we did it first up, where it's just draw the hammer pairs, is good to a point. It works to get it down to like, you know, a mango size group or whatever. And once you're there and you can do that around at or under 20 splits pretty consistently, I kind of feel like that's about as good as that really needs to get. You can do that really consistently and not push down on the gun, and you know, do 4 or 5 sets in a row where you're not making mistakes. You've done what you can with that format, right? It's time to start applying that skill in different ways. So we'll do more of that later. We're gonna move on to some transition stuff right now. Okay. So you'll stand up here, so about 6 yards up from the close range target, so that you have a close target and a far target kind of shoulder to shoulder. So I have this target on the right close to me, and one with a black stripe in the back on the right there. Okay? I'm going to draw and fire one shot on each in alternation for at least 6 rounds. So it'll be close, far, close, far, close, far. Okay? Same thing back to front. Okay. So what you notice about that, or maybe you didn't, but it's true, is that the pacing back and forth is very even. Right? So the split times are pretty close to each other, where I'm going near to far, far to near. And that's because I'm not trying to abuse the close target and use less sight confirmation simply because I can get away with it. Right? I'm trying to look to a small spot on both targets, and the priority is on getting my eye to look to a small point on this target, and then basically race the gun to the back to beat my dot to the back target. Right? And when we do that, when we treat each target like we're trying to hit a small point on it, and not treat it like it's 2 targets of different difficulties, the transition takes about the same amount of time. Right? So it's pop, 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 back and forth. It's very much a vision-focused exercise. Where we're trying to really emphasize that eye pull to get your eye to focus close, focus far, focus close, focus far. Okay, so that's 2 good examples, starting on either target. When you come up, I want you to start on the same target and do it the exact same way for the whole set, and then we'll go check out the pattern. Right? Here's a bad example. Some kind of target close and something with at least like 4 to 5 yards of separation away, and that's roughly what you need to get that feeling of the eye pull, look close, look far. What I like about this setup is, like, with a step left or right a few feet, you can change the width of the transition and drastically change the difficulty of the challenge. And it also can make it harder by just doing it for longer. So I'm doing 6 rounds because that's kind of the minimum where it's hard to do. But like in my own training, especially in dry fire, I'll do this for like 30 engagements, like back, forth, until I start to feel it fall apart, or like my eye sticks to the dot and it breaks apart, and then I'll pause and set it up again and try to do it correctly. But this is really good fuel to practice that skill of looking close and far and being precise with your vision. Okay. Ready to do one more?
Heck
One
yeah.
more set on this, then we'll change
Do you
it up.
usually, for dry fire, do you usually use different size of targets, or do you actually position them at different distance? Because it
Both.
feels like different size, you still have the same distance, so basically your vision does not switch to far.
I completely agree, right? So it's not, the scaled targets are good because if you're dry firing in a closet, you have a very small
Yeah.
space. It's better than nothing, but nothing replicates real distance.
Okay.
Like even if you have to go like out a window, like you have a telephone pole across the street from your window, and then you put a set of target on the inside, that will create that same sensation. Or you can even do it with a mirror,
Yeah.
because your vision works the same way through a mirror to like create artificial distance over your shoulder. So there's a lot of ways to do it, but nothing replaces that real feeling of actually going close far. I think it's a huge fail when people just have like a billboard with all the targets that are different sizes and think that's the same thing. It's not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Keep
you.
going. Are you ready? Stand by. We're visualizing this, right? Just with your eyes. Huh? Ready? Stand by. Looks good, man. Let's try to go a little faster.
A little faster, check.
Okay. Ready? Stand by. multiple changes in depth and different gear changes, so to speak. So obviously there's going to be a pretty big difference in the sight confirmation level you can get away with from the far targets versus the close targets, right? But you're going to be changing gears very rapidly as you work your way through the array. So I'll stand in a position here where I have these 4 guys with the stripes in the face. So I got far, close, close, far. I can shoot these in any order, right? But I want to do it again the same way for the entire set. So if there's an obvious target pattern, it's going to be revealed when I'm done. So it's not just changing it up every single time. So for the purposes of this, I'll do this one. I'll just go right to left, right? That'll be fine. So it'll be far, close, close, far. As far as performance metrics, right? We want to shoot the far guys with control, obviously. It's probably get away with a slightly moving sight picture, but not crazy if you ever want to get the points consistent. And the close guys, we should be able to shoot basically as fast as you can pull the trigger, getting after them really aggressively, right? And making that, using those engagement methods properly and transitioning over different distances will be the hard part. Like making that gear change happen, keeping your eyes sharp and not pushing down on the gun. You're starting to put together a lot of layers that'll have to happen correctly at the same time in order to shoot a good score on this. Okay? Eyes and ears. These will be pretty similar in terms of the sort of drill imperative. This one over here, I'll stand so I got close, far, the same type of idea. Okay, the last one just to be for good sport. This one I'll change up. I'll go close, far, close, far. You have any questions? It's pretty simple, right? Ready? Stand by. Gonna do one more. Ready? Stand by. Alright guys, I'll let you clear. Do the trigger part wrong. So get where you can see what my finger's doing right here. Okay? What I want you to notice is that when I do it wrong, right, I'm gonna really reset the trigger and you're gonna see the process of the finger going forward instead of the trigger. Okay? I'll shoot this target in the back. Ready? Stand by. Right, you can see the finger going forward every single shot. Right? What I want is something more like this. You don't see it going forward at all because it's happening while the gun is cycling in the air, right? So if you're in the habit of hitting it and then like flick resetting it, like slapping on the trigger, you know, that's usually a habit that's built on dry fire because we pull the trigger really hard and aggressive in dry fire to show yourself that this hand is going to kind of clutch on the gun, and that's a good thing. But we don't want to do that so much that we build the habit of slapping the trigger when it doesn't make sense or when you're simply not prepping the trigger as much as you're able to. Right? Like it's a good habit in live fire to prep as much as you can between stable sight pictures. Right? So like with the drill I just did would be the most elementary way I would tee that up, where I have a fairly hard target. I want to focus on feeling the wall break, and then I reset the trigger as fast as I can in the air. Right? That's a good thing to do on a fundamentals drill first, and then you want to apply it on something like this where we're shooting mixed difficulties, mixed speeds, and to make sure that, you know, that's still happening regardless of the difficulty of the target. Let me grab one mag and I'll show you. for the lack of a better term, timing the recoil, where sometimes you push down on the gun and then you get exposed by a drill like this where it's fast, slow, fast, slow. A lot of the time that's because of that habit of slapping the trigger based on the difficulty of the target, right? So the reset process should look the same no matter what the target is like, right? And that should not slow you down. Like, we manage the trigger as closely as we can. We're not trying to barely reset it, but we're trying to reset it quickly and prep it back in as fast as we can, regardless of the difficulty of the target. Okay. So what you're going to see here is I'm going to draw, shoot the target in the back standing, and then I'm going to try to make a couple steps of progress on the close, easy target. All right, I'm going to rinse and repeat that till I get over to the other cone. All right? Sit back. Come on. There we go. Okay. So basically, the skill we're after here is that you're trying to transition and step immediately, right? So those two things happen at the same time. We don't want to see the gun come down a bunch of times between engagements. We want it to look like you're transitioning from target to target the entire way. And part of the assessment is going to be, am I transitioning immediately? Am I more or less shooting the same speed as I would if I was shooting standing? And how much progress am I able to make? In this case, right, I made it like 4 or 5 yards. Right, the raw time there is 5.7. If I shoot the same target order standing, so I'm a little bit off pace, right? I want to try to get those two numbers to come together as much as possible, right? We're not going to do like an actual part-time for you guys like that, but if you stand here and visualize that, pop, 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 like we want the shooting to be the same moving as if it were standing, right? And in that way, we're trying to make it like if your attention stays with the target, and you're going to have to just figure out how to subconsciously make your legs stop when you need to generate stability for the target in the back. Does that make sense? Okay. So all three of these setups are exactly the same. The only caveat with this is going to be, you know, where everyone's going to row in the same direction. You'll just go from right to left. And if you begin, right, like you pull the gun out, you have a problem with it or something like that, there's going to be someone coming to fill in the space where you're standing. So it's critical that you kind of make a little bit of progress as you go, so you're not running into each other with guns in your hands. Makes sense?
And we're not shooting in a position, move, shoot, and move. We actually move. Just like start.
Sort of, yeah, but you saw
As much
like,
as you can.
when I demoed it, right, like the target in the back, I pretty much have to stop my feet for that, because it's kind of aggressive to try to take that target moving and get consistent points. And we're still in skill building phase in this case, right? Like it's a very procedurally dictated laboratory style drill. We want to shoot perfect points and just do it as fast as we can. So you're probably going to find you're going to transition and pedal a little bit of the easy stuff and then have to stop hard for the target in the back. Cool? Let's try it. Bit, and then shoot more stuff from a different position. Like variations of this are really how we utilize soft entries to gain time more of the time than not, right? And the strength we're trying to gain here is that we're comfortable applying a fast engagement method or making a really aggressive fast progress with your feet while aiming a little bit more carefully, right? So variations of this to make this more interesting. You saw I swung one target from this side over the other side. It's going to be being able to apply this skill in both directions with wide transitions. And when I do this on my own training, usually it's going to be like one target in the back that's a little bit harder than this, usually like a partial or a plate. And then I'm going to have targets out on the wings where I'm required to shoot target in the back, target forward, target backward, target in the back, and then do variations where there's 90-degree swings every which way, right? And then you can make it even harder by dictating the movement direction. Set out like a triangle of cones and be like, okay, I want to go from point A to B to C, and then change the movement direction every time, right? But the purpose of this is once you do it 2 or 3 times, you start to kind of figure out like the choreography of how to like make it flow together well, and then it gets way easier, right? And that's, with some experience, you kind of learn a lot of tools that'll get you through a match or a stage effectively. But I think this is most valuable if you're forced to deal with it without having a really cogent, well choreographed plan, where you're kind of trying it for the first time, walk it once or twice and just do it, right? So that's kind of the direction we're rolling with this. We're gonna have less and less chances to figure it out before you go. So again, sort of behind the magician's cloak, that's the direction we're going. Do you have any questions about the purpose of this time? Okay, we'll go again. Make sure everyone's done it at least twice, sort of working once in each direction. Okay, and then we'll move on to something else. Make ready. Ready. Stand by.
Okay.
Ready. Stand by. One more. Stand by. So that'll be the drill. We're going to draw standing, fire moving, working your way opposite the direction of travel across the array. Okay, I'm going to do another one. I want you to watch what I'm doing with my feet. So you'll notice, to start off when the targets are kind of in front of me, I'm basically walking forward. Walking this way, try to keep my hips facing the target. As I get crossed up, right, if I keep trying to walk forward, my upper body's going to get all compromised and the gun's not going to behave right. So I'll go from basically walking forward to walking backwards as I start to get past 90 degrees. Okay? That's it. Let's try it. What happens essentially, if you work with me here and we walk slowly this way, you'll see the target is panning in relation to the background. Right, so if you don't continuously track the center of the target in space and continue to aim at that spot, right, basically you fire once, aim twice, the second shot's going to carry in the direction of travel every single time. Right, and then sometimes also, right, like they'll kind of fan across the whole target like this, and that's simply because it's very hard to get your vision to stay focused on a small spot while contending with transitions and a moving dot and your moving feet and everything else. Right, so there's a lot of moving pieces with this. If we see shots like perpetually pushing in that direction, though, usually that's because your vision is going soft at the moment you commit to fire the pair. The first shot will be pretty centered up, and the second shot's going to carry off in the direction you're going. Okay? Let's patch them down and the same way you normally would, right? Like, of course, we get a little bit lower so I don't bounce with my cadence of my steps, but I try to walk heel toe and touch my feet down. When I'm going sideways, I try to pick my heels up using my calves and stay on the ball of my feet when I'm going, which enables me to use my ankle to absorb more shock as I go. Right, and doing that's going to enable me to move faster, and still absorb a lot of shock with my feet. Right? So I'm not using just my hips and my quad to basically suspend for suspension. I have another joint in the mix that enables me to move really fast, so stay pretty stable and not bounce the sight around. Okay, let's keep going. Like we said, this morning we did all skill building, where we have a very specific skill or habit in mind that we're trying to embody. And we're doing drills that are going to make it so basically that skill or trait is mandatory to get the outcome that we want. Right, and in that way, we're always shooting for A's. We're never subjective about the scoring. We're not pretending that it's a stage and saying, good enough when we get shitty points. We're making a hard transition into that style of shooting now. Right, this is going to be a strategic drill where we're simply trying to optimize the score. Right? Does everyone know how you calculate hit factor? Points divided by time. Right? So if you have an 8-round drill, like those two are, it's going to be a 40-point drill. Right, so if you shoot all A's, you get 40 points. You divide that by your time, which is going to be something under 10 seconds, and then that's going to be your score. Right, so if you got a full house, 40 points divided by 10 seconds, what's the factor? 4. Very good. We're paying attention. All right. So that's basically what we're going to be asking ourselves after every repetition. We might not have perfect information after every repetition. We're going to be thinking about it in these terms, right? And we're going to try to look at different strategic outcomes or approaches to see which one's going to be best. Okay? So I'll let you look behind the magician's cloak. The cheat code, before we get started on all this, is going to be once you're committed to stop and shoot a target with flat feet, it's pretty much never going to be advantageous to deliberately shoot bad points by going faster, right? Because,
Can you repeat that?
yeah, of course. Once you stop, right, and you're shooting stuff flat-footed, you're never going to be able to throttle out, right, by shooting Charlies and gain the scoring advantage, right? You can aim safe on partials and eat Charlies to create a safety advantage to make it so you're less likely to get penalties, but you're not going to acquire time or gain time by shooting Charlies, shooting minor. It doesn't work. The only way you can go faster and start to deteriorate your point count and gain a real scoring advantage is going to be when you're able to combine that with movement. You can save phenomenal amounts of time shooting a couple targets moving, right? And we'll make a demonstration out of that very promptly here. Far side. Okay. So what I'll do here is basically one of the targets in the back I'm going to shoot from this cone. The other target in the back will be required to shoot from that cone as well. Right? The stuff on the side, you're going to have the ability to blend on that if you want to shoot that stuff moving on the way over. In the first rep, I'm going to shoot everything standing. So I'm in a hard position, shoot 3 targets standing still, and then move over and shoot the other target in the back over there. Okay? And we'll look at that time, and then we'll compare it to the moving time. The strategy focus drill, that's much more subjective. We're trying to like mimic some scenario or just shoot to get the best score we can on the drill as it's presented. And in that case, it's much more subjective, like whether it's better to lose a couple points and go faster or vice versa, if that makes sense. But starting off this morning, right, we are in skill mode. So when we're structuring our training in general, at least 40 to 50% of your training is going to be spent in skill mode. We have some very specific fundamental thing that you want to work on, and you're going to be working on it the way we're talking about, right? Where it's not like, oh, well, yeah, that was okay, except I had an Alpha Charlie. It's like, no, it's either, the assessment is basically it's either perfect or it's fucked, right? And there's really nothing in between, because we want to have very hard standards for ourselves when we're trying to build skills. We have any questions so far? It's been pretty simple so far. So we have targets in the back. They're basically marked. One's blank, one's black, all the way across. That's to make it a little bit easier for you guys to communicate and make sure you're not sharing targets as we go. The first drill we're going to shoot from as far back as we can get, so we'll peel right back all the way to the shelter right here. So everyone got ammo and eyes and ears and everything? We'll begin. Right, I'm shooting that as fast as I can. I'm going to do the same thing, the same rough target order, but I'm going to shoot the partial, blend on the 2 opens, and then enter for the far paper in the back. Okay, 4.6, so 0.8 second difference. Right, what did you guys notice about that? About the shooting speed? Something changed.
Shooting speed seemed a bit slower.
That's slower on these 2 targets.
100%.
But you made it
100%. Right? Because I'm moving fast, I can get away with shooting pretty carefully. As long as those targets are done when I get there and I'm able to just turn my attention back and enter and fire immediately, I'm not still stuck dealing with this stuff, the time's going to be the same. Right? As if I go really fast. So I'm able to back that off, guarantee good points on easy targets, right? And generate a huge time advantage. 0.8 seconds, a fucking massive time advantage on a 4.5 second drill.
Yeah.
Okay? So here's a different example, right? Here's the one in this drill. We're going to start hands in the drill. We're going to draw and shoot paper, close paper, far paper. Move over to the other side. Close paper, far paper. Okay? So there's no ability to blend on this, right? So if you try to start to tamp on the gas like we talked about, you're probably going to eat some points. And that's probably not going to, benefit your score. got 2 Charlie plus an extra shot, which sucks. It's a shitty score. Okay? I'll try it again. Now I'm going to try it much more diligently. That was 5.7 with 3 Charlie, so I lost 6 points. Okay, on my 8-round drill. So we're down to 34 points divided by 5.5 is anyone?
6 and some change.
Yeah, so I'm not going to see you guys blazing over a little already, right? So let me give you the cheat code on this, right? Hit factor math-wise, what you need to know is that a 5 factor, every Charlie is going to cost you 0.4 seconds. 0.4, right? At a 10, if the score is a 5 hit factor, you shoot a whole stage, you get to the end, your factor is 5.0 whatever, right? Every Charlie in that case costs you 0.4 seconds. At a 10 factor, what is it going to be?
0.8.
No, opposite.
0.2.
Right. It's double the score, it costs you half the score. So at a 10 factor, it costs you 0.2, 5 factor, it costs you 0.4. So with those two numbers in mind, you have a frame of reference for 80+% of the stages you're going to shoot, because most of them fall in that range. Right. So think about how much more I could invest with, in this case, we say this is 6 and change. So that means every Charlie costs me 0.35 seconds. Think about how much more aiming I can do with 0.35 seconds. Right, I can shoot much more carefully, much more disciplined, and still generate this, the same outcome on paper, but in a way that I'm never going to fuck it up or really have any risk of making a real mistake. Okay? I'm going to drop the single Charlie shooting that carefully. It's 5.6 again. Okay. The biggest strategic flex, we're going to shoot the partial target from the far side of this barrel. Right, so I'll start at this cone, and I have to shoot this close open paper from here, and the other one on the way, and I'm able to shoot the 2 in the back whenever I want. Okay. I lost 2, 3, 6 points by taking that combination. So if we assume it's, again, roughly a 6 or 7 factor stage, that is a huge scoring advantage, right? Even with this sloppy outcome, I'm at an advantage. Right? So if I can do this and never miss, it's a huge advantage. Right? But obviously, the risk of this is if I do this 3 or 4 times in a row, I need to know, like in real terms, what is the probability of missing once I start taking risks like this. Okay? Just for good sport, let's do one more. Okay? So same outcome.
Came in.
All right, over here. So we have here 4 attempts. And of the 4 attempts, we have 3 alphas and 5 not, right? So what do we do with this information? I'm asking truly, I'm not just like baiting you. What do we think we do with this information?
3 alphas, 5 knots.
If not for, I mean, I don't want to speak for Brad, but if not for no shoot, I would be, I mean, with pistol especially, I'd be okay with this outcome.
I would agree.
Yeah, and I know exactly what happened. I was trying to get faster, but for that target specifically, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I agree. I actually agree.
Yeah.
Right, because this is a very difficult target, right? What I would like to see is probably picking an aiming scheme, one or the other. We know we can do a fist to hand size group, and we put that somewhere on the target, right? I want to put it somewhere where it actually gives me a chance of getting some A's. Yeah. Putting it down here, right? If I shoot a perfect fist size group and nuzzle it against this no shoot, I'm going to get maybe 30 or 40% A's. Right, and then I'm taking on the risk of nipping this white more because I'm aiming tighter to it. And if I put it up here, I'm still going to get 40 or so % A's, but the odds of hitting white goes to 0. I just have to remember that this is functionally all black.
Yes.
right? Make sense?
Yeah.
This is how you should be thinking about this. I get a no-shoot or some example like this. I come down, I say, you know, I got, in this case, 3 alphas and then 5 something else's, right? What can I do about this strategy to shore that up and shape it in one direction or the other? Am I able to aim more and invest more and get better points consistently without losing time? Or would it make sense to take this shitty percentage of A's and just try to do it faster, for example? Let's look at the other one over here. So this is patched, but you can see where the holes were.
Yeah.
Right, we got the same deal. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have 50% A's, except for the no shoot. Right, what do we think about this ratio?
50% is on that target.
Doable,
Yeah.
50%, eh?
50? Do we think that's okay?
No. No, it's the great.
It really depends on your gut in this case, right?
Yeah.
If we're confident in our ability to draw and fire a fist-sized group, then I would say you're not applying that strength here, right? So I would say in that way it's inadequate. Because if I try to shoot a 50 fist-sized group or so, and again I place that on the target so it's never going to touch the white, I should be able to get 70 to 90% alphas on this, right? And if I try this a bunch and I'm not really getting that for some reason, like if this is a harder partial like this, then maybe the answer would be different. Like, okay, well, I'm going to try to just get them on brown as fast as I can, like I did over there, right? But if I'm applying that same principle, fist-sized group, put it on there so they never touch the white, I want to get like 70 to 90% alphas. Okay. Does that make sense? And if we have pushes like this to happen, we know mechanically why that happens, right? It's because of the diving we talked about all morning. Okay, let's clean them up. Are you ready? Stand by. That's won me 3 limited nationals, for example. In that division, where it's hard to get good hits because I have irons and I'm not rewarded or really punished for shooting Charlies, I attempt to shoot all alphas on all the open targets out to 12 yards. Everything else I get it on brown, right? Shooting carry optics is going to be very different, right? It's pretty easy to get the points. I get punished a lot more for shooting C's. It's probably going to be like 0 to 20 yard open targets. I'm going to guarantee good points. And then if they're farther than that or riskier than that, right, then I'm going to just get them on brown, right? Like those are the kinds of observations you should start to synthesize by doing drills like this, by collecting a small data set and saying, hey, is this working X out of 5 times? Break that down to a simple percentage. Let's keep going. What our options are, we go there, we deal with the highest priority problem first, and then we start going to other stuff, right? So once you're done, when it's time to move, I think I need to go there. I focus on getting there, I deal with the first problem, and then I have other options. But you don't have time to have a perfectly baked visualization, right? I gave him a beep when his hand was still here, right? It's not going to be perfect most of the time. Ready? So, you guys are picking up on the basic procedure, I hope. Basically, you have targets that are marked a certain way, they belong to you. You're going to do them in the widest, sequence possible. So we're doing as many wide transitions as we can. Right, so on this side, I have the ones with a black stripe in the face.
Yeah.
When I want you guys to watch me and watch my head and shoulders and body and everything in this room, okay? Rays like this, it's really important that you get a wide base and try to point your hips kind of at the outside of the array. That's going to have the effect of when you stand neutral, right, your hips are going to face the middle of the array, which makes it easy to use my legs to get my hips and shoulders to face the target at the same time, right, which is going to be much more quick and stable than if you're kind of twisting at your core and you're basically using your abs to twist the gun. It's also really important that you try to use your neck to get your eye on the target faster. So particularly going away from your dominant eye, if I'm trying to transition to here and I basically have my head and gun locked together, I can't see the target over here until I get about 3/4 of the way there. Right? So by using your neck, you can get your eye on the spot a lot faster. and it's going to give you a lot more processing time to see the spot you want to hit, which will make the transition a lot easier to execute. Do you have any questions so far? So, especially the middle sequence where their targets are blank, it's going to be a little bit of a vision challenge to figure out which targets are yours. So when you come up, we'll take a second to visualize it, right? And then we're going to go no dry fire on this one, all right? We're going to come up, visualize it like it's a stage in a match, and then the first time you do it's going to be with a loaded gun. Okay? Let's try it. Right. This reveals a problem where we're in a habit of doing a little bit too much subconscious shooting, right? So on a stage, the conventional wisdom is you get your plan, you kind of like move your eye from item to item, from target to target, maybe you look at your gun to reload it, but you have this list of things you go through, and you sort of close your eyes and visualize those in order, and after doing that a few times, you can remember it without thinking about it at all. And we think about that like it's a subconscious cue stack, right? That's the way most people are taught to do stages. When we do that at the exclusion of everything else, it makes it hard to know when to use your conscious brain to get back involved to think your way through a problem, right? So people will be accustomed to shooting stages that way. They have a malfunction, or they deviate from the plan, or they have a bad shot or something, and all of a sudden you see like there's this whole like demeanor change where they have to pause to like, you know, the body language change to fix all these issues because they're not used to using their brain to work their way through a problem. So when we pause on a target the instant we see brown, and where we stop searching to find the target that has the markings that it needs, right? That's revealing a really big bad habit or a really big weakness. Because when's the last time you guys shot a stage that was more than 12 rounds and it went perfect start to finish?
Almost never.
Rarely, right? Rarely will that happen. Most of the time there's going to be small imperfections and mistakes, and you kind of got to just power through them. And the more effective you are at thinking your way through problems and not needing to feel comfortable in order to generate success, like the better you're going to be at being successful at bigger matches or on longer stages. Yeah. It's really, really important. So that's why I asked you guys to come up and not dry fire it until it felt perfect before we did it, right? We're not going to choreograph all the drills today. We're not going to choreograph it until it feels great before we go and then get a great first result. Like, I'm not that interested in that. I want to see if you can come up, visualize it 3 or 4 times, and make it happen the first time. That's going to be the focus. And in doing that, there's going to be some small procedural errors and small problems with the performance. And your goal is just to say, hey, what went wrong with that? Let's see if I can troubleshoot that for the next repetition. But like when you encounter failure, when, not if, right? The goal is to just like put that shit in the rear view as fast as possible and get back on the next item in the stack to basically fix the problem with your brain and then get back on task. Yep. As far as the mechanics for this, right? Like we talked about, going right to left usually is harder for most people. Again, that's why I mentioned using your neck to find the target to get your head out in front of the gun, right? We just don't want to make that cumbersome such that we're looking and then transitioning Terminator style. That's going to be slow as well. We want the eyes and gun to leave at the same time. We just want the eyes to keep the gun to the target. And that's sort of the utility of the neck thing. What I like about working on wide transitions for people that have tight shoulders, which everyone will at some point, as you start to try to go faster, you kind of seize up. It's sort of a universal experience. Wider transitions will make it, especially when you use the neck cue, it makes it a lot easier to notice when your shoulders get tense. Because if you tense up your traps and get really your shoulders up around your ears, and you try to look to one side, it's very challenging to do. Right? Versus if I try to keep my scaps back and try to go with my lats, like my neck is free to do what it needs to do. Right? So I really like working on wide transitions and different width transitions all in the same array for this reason. It adds a huge layer of difficulty, and again, looking behind the magician's cloak here, right? Sort of the conscious shooting is going to be the focus of most of today's drills, where you're not able to make it perfect before you start doing. You're going to have to fix small problems on the fly. Do you have any questions so far? We'll do this again. Yeah. You don't really want to do that, no. Right? So we're going to use static recoil control using our stance. We get a little bit forward, right? And we get our arms pretty straight, but you don't want the muscle in your neck to get tight. As your shoulders start to creep up, it's going to make it very hard to transition wide quickly.
Occasionally, you're going to try to pull down the shoulder.
Yes, using your lats. If it's a habit for you, you got to put that tension somewhere else. Usually, if people like do like a lat pull down, like with your lat muscles, or hold the tension in your legs or your ass, that's going to be an easier way to redirect that so you keep your upper body relaxed. Okay. Let's keep going. So we'll do the simple setup first, right? We're going to work on leaning a bunch. So we're going to start, same deal, hands on barrel here, and you're going to be static in this position. I'm going to draw, shoot one of the targets on the right, tip out, shoot target left, center, and then re-engage the target on the right. Okay. So I got 3 targets. I'll draw, fire the one on the far right, shoot the other 2 from the other side, return to the same target. Okay. What I want you to pay attention to, right, with my body mechanics here, is I'm gonna get low with my legs so that I don't have to tip my spine very much to make this lean happen, right? The goal is to get low and wide, which enables me to shift my hips over my feet, and you see my back still stays pretty upright, as opposed to standing comfortable with my legs, but then I have to bend over with my upper body, okay? This is good because it adds a little bit of difficulty. When people get put in a slightly leaning position, they tend to get really tense with their shoulders, and that runs into your hands, right? And the grip changes a lot. Even when I was doing that, I could see the dot after it finished, the shot is fluttering, covering like the height of the entire A zone, which tells me my grip is different and my wrist lock is not the same as it usually is, right? So that part is gonna be more challenging. You also are contending with a vision barrier in your way where you can't see the target you're trying to hit until the very last second. Right, so like we talked about yesterday, as you get to a target, if this is the vision barrier and this is the target, right, as the vision barrier gets out of your way, you're going to be liable to catch hits on the outside edge of that target. Okay. These other ones are going to be a little more interesting. I'm going to start at this cone right here, and I'll shoot one of the targets, probably the black stripe in the face guys over here. Okay, I'll shoot one of the guys in the back, and then the 2 in the middle engage through this opening in the barrels. As I move through this space, I can engage this guy at any time, and then I'm going to re-engage the other one in the back. Okay. Again, we're doing this with like 0 to 1 back that I can see that's unobstructed. Again, shooting the white face guys here. I'll shoot the guy in the back that's unobstructed. This close to the target. I'll engage the 2 in the middle between this opening, and then to the other side of this barrel here to engage the other target. Okay? Does everyone understand?
Hell yeah, let's go.
Yeah, these should be pretty fun. These should be pretty cool. Again, working on conscious shooting. So we want to just power through like the habits that are going to set you up for success here, right? When I'm able to and I'm not covering a lot of distance, the gun stays mounted pretty much at extension unless there's objects that are in my way from maintaining extension. You see in my stance with this, I get really low. I'm taking small bites the entire way that enable me to stay low and in a good base. So when I land, I'm ready to shoot. I'm not standing up, turning my hips and committing to move and then having to settle back down again. Good?
Good.
Let's try it. Dicks are going to act like windows. They're not going to serve as nearly as much of a vision barrier, right? So the vision barrier element's going to be taken away, but we're going to deliberately set up the conditions so it's a little bit more complicated and hard to remember what the sequence is. So you're not going to have the ability to really choreograph it a whole bunch and make it perfect the first time. So basically you'll start in the middle between these 2 stands, right? The target's in the back. You're going to shoot the target from its respective stance. The guy on the left gets got through the left window. The guy on the right gets got through the right window. And all the uprange targets you can take anywhere in between. Right?
Anywhere
We're
in
just going to blend as much as we can. Okay, so we have 5 targets in this case. It enables us, if we want, to draw and shoot one of those every time we move. We have something to shoot at. Okay, so we could do something like draw, close guy, target, close guy, target, or something like that. Good? That sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Nice.
This one will be very... cool. I definitely need to lube this before the match. That's getting sticky. Okay. Do you have any questions? This one is like, because it's not as involved and not as difficult, right? You shouldn't have to focus quite as much on the marksmanship with this, where the vision barrier element is taken away. It's going to be more about applying yourself athletically to move as quick as you can to cover distance where you don't want to. So stuff we're really looking out for here, right? We don't want to get stuck in shooting on the move mode when we're not shooting. What I mean by that, right, is it's really common for people that they draw, shoot an easy target, and they kind of get stuck aiming regardless of what they're doing until they get all the way over here. Once I shoot a target, right, it can stay mounted if I like, but I want to move as fast as I can if I'm not in the process of actually shooting a target. And if we're given a long chance to run long, like you saw, I'm going to take a hand off, turn and run like I mean it. Okay? Questions? Let's begin. Again, like I mentioned yesterday morning, now that we're down to 2 shooters, this is going to slow down a lot. So again, we're going to need to be Johnny on the spot and ready to shoot when it's time to shoot. Okay, let's get started. We'll clean these up quick and then we'll go. So shoot very carefully, right? Because that's going to usually give you the best scoring advantage. And I know this advice sounds kind of goofy. Anyone tells you to shoot slow on purpose, people's eyebrows kind of approach their hairline automatically. But I want to do a demo. I'll do 3 runs that'll kind of demonstrate this point, right? So the first one, I'll shoot everything static. So I'll run to the position, shoot stuff, run to the other position, shoot stuff. And obviously that's going to be the slowest option with no blending. But let's look at the time and see what that ends up being. Come on, work with me. That one.
I have a real timer.
Sure. My timer's phenomenal. I like it just fine. I'm not taking it easy. I'm trying to shoot as fast as I can, but obviously that's going to be probably the slowest option. That was 6.4. Okay, so now I'm going to do one where I try to blend, but I'm going to move fast and shoot fast. Right, so I'm going to still shoot full speed, move full speed, try to do everything basically full tilt. This is going to be the riskiest option and probably the fastest by a small margin. Okay, so right now I've got
All alphas.
looks like maybe a
maybe
something
a Charlie.
back there, but good points. We'll call it good points, right? That should be consistently good points, so we'll call that good points. All right, 8 mode. The Charlies in the back there, that was just goofy. But I got 3 Charlies here and 1 there. Time 4:94. So cut 0.7 seconds doing that. I'm gonna do another one.
No, you cut more.
What was the first one again?
640.
Oh shit, that's a lot of time. Yeah, so about 1.5. Okay, cut about 1.5. So off a 5-second drill, it's like 30 or 40% savings usually. And the more blending it is, the less stopped positions it is, the greater that percentage is going to be, of course, right? So I'm gonna do another run, and this is the way I would actually handle it in the match. It's the way I keep telling you guys to do it. Where I'm gonna prioritize the transitions the same way. I'm gonna try to move really fast, but I'm gonna shoot pretty carefully, right? And I'll be dramatic about it. Like I'll shoot very careful, but I'm still gonna move full speed, and we'll look at what the time is there. 5.2. So within 0.3.
0.3.
And I was saying a minute in the back, right?
That's
a minute
one
ago in the
Charlie.
back. With these types of drills, usually you can save up to 40% by leveraging a lot of dynamic blending. But the difference once you commit to move, like that's what saves the time, is the fact that you're blending out. So trying to shoot fast and move fast has a pretty significant point of diminishing returns, right? Because you're moving quick, you're going to be a little uncomfortable, and you try to shoot faster than you're comfortable, you're going to start to hemorrhage points really fast and start to negate that time advantage, that scoring advantage that you've generated. So my typical approach is I'm going to choose between moving full speed or shooting full speed, right? If I'm standing still and I'm comfortable with the shooting, I'm able to achieve my normal match mode, maybe a little bit faster if I'm feeling sporty. Or if I'm just tilting out just a little bit, I can kind of do the same thing. But once I'm committing to move my feet and like move hard by pedaling, I'm usually going to drop the shooting speed back a little bit, even on easy targets, because the time I gain by trying to shoot full speed, it's just for show at that point. There's no actual scoring advantage to be had for me, anyway. Do you have any questions about that?
Oh, it's good.
Okay.
Good.
See, we can apply that this afternoon and see how well it works. I've kind of gone away from doing this drill in a class because it can be a little slow, but we're going to do a short version of this. I think it'd be a really valuable exercise to sort of calibrate us before we go shoot our match this afternoon. This whole morning, like we talked about, I've been doing a lot of really involved exercises where the assessment is very subjective, you could say, where the focus of the drill and sort of the assessment is going to be different based on the individual and what you're focused on. The common theme, no matter who you are, is we want to make sure when we have small mistakes, we power through them and sort of fix a problem with your brain, right? Because it's rarely going to be perfect. This is going to be quite a bit different from that. It's going to be more of a lab style drill where we're trying to shoot different speeds basically and see in empirical terms what's going to give us the best score. Okay, so with this drill, we're going to have 3 categories. We'll call this slow, match, and push. You can also think about this as 80% effort, 90% effort, and 100% effort or more. Okay? So basically we'll have a regular array like this, and you're going to draw and shoot an order on the targets. And you're going to do it the same exact way every time. The catch is going to be you want to try to predict what level of effort you're going to put into it before you do the run. So starting off, right, I'm going to hold a little bit in reserve. I'm going to shoot kind of slow and careful. It should be basically perfect points. I would put that time in the score in the 80% category, the slow category, right? Then I'll do one that just feels normal, the way I would shoot a regular match. I'll put that in the 90 category. And then I'll do one where I'm pushing a little bit, not going ridiculous, try like with no accountability, but trying to push everything I can. Like all the transitions go faster, use a little bit less sight confirmation, and obviously that's going to go in the 100% category. And so this method of training is good to sort of slow down the repetitions, force you to write stuff down, thinking about it a little bit more, and it should enable you to figure out sort of when I think I'm going medium effort in a way that I wouldn't have matched to maximize my score but prevent mistakes. You might find that your perception of what of neutral is not accurate. Okay, so I'll do 4 or 5 attempts here. And I'm going to have someone keep score for me. So basically, you'll put down the time and rough hits. So you'll annotate it like 7.0, 2 Charlie or whatever the case may be, right? That'll be kind of how you keep notes. And anyone? I'll start off, we'll do an 80. And I'll do a slightly goofy target order just to make this a little more interesting, not just going left to right. Okay, so of course all alphas and 4.3.
I think you dropped the Charlie.
Shut your mouth. Okay, we'll do on match mode, a little bit more normal speed. Okay, that time I dropped Charlie, sure. That's the second one. Okay, 4 seconds flat, and I'll do one where I go bananas. Okay, so I'm going to try to use as little sight confirmation as I can possibly get away with here. Shot 2 Charlie. And that was 3.6. Okay. So usually this is not going to scale quite this linearly, right? In this case, yeah. So this adds up to be like 0.3 first. That ends up being like 4.3. And so we end up with roughly the same score in these two. I can tell you from doing this a lot through experience, the actual statistical peak score for me is going to ride on the line between 80 and 90%. Because as I'm inclined, my natural tendency is to be a little reckless and go a little too fast, right? So by holding back a little bit more than it feels like I probably should for me, that tends to generate the best score. If you're a slower shooter who's very methodical and very disciplined, you're probably going to find the opposite, right? Where I have to push myself, be a little bit uncomfortable in order to generate the best score, because you're going to shoot the points no matter what, so you have to be encouraged to try to go faster. Does that make sense? Okay, so we'll do this, so probably each person will get like 5 reps, right? So you'll go slow, medium, fast, and then it'll be dealer's choice. You can do 2 reps in a different category if you want to redo them or whatever, okay? So it'll be one set up here, another shooter will operate right there. We'll go independent of each other, get someone else with the timer on this side. You'll keep score for that guy, and we'll try to do as well as we can. Any questions so far? Let's do it. Let's patch. It's better to go to, you have at least 2 to 3 data points in each column. Of course, doing 9 attempts in a row, you're going to start to get a bit of a practice effect for the array where you really figure out like all the nooks and crannies of the transitions and everything. So it's a good idea when you do this to make it a little bit more involved than this, maybe with another position and a short movement, and that'll enable you to change direction halfway, you know, sort of flop the transition order. So it's the same task, but just with kind of a fresh set of eyes on the drill, right? And for most people, like I mentioned, you're gonna notice that your perception of neutral, of match mode, is not great. And certainly that your perception of time is not very accurate, right? So when you try to push 10% faster, usually we don't get a linear 10% increase in time, but we do get like a 20% increase in point or penalty liability, right? Most of the time, especially if you're a faster guy. If you're slower, sometimes people need to push themselves to go a little faster. But following this basic format with your training is a really good way to kind of figure out what sort of shooter you are, right? Maybe initially the conclusion is, I don't have fine control over how fast I go. And for many of you, even some of the good shooters in the class, we kind of find out that's sort of the case. Or in his case, Bradley's case, right? He tried to slow down and shoot 80%, and it was no increase in accuracy, but a significant decrease, you know, a loss of time, right? So in that case, it's like, definitely don't try to slow down to get better hits on normal stuff. Only apply that very strict prescriptive shooting where it's absolutely necessary, and do what feels natural and everything else. Obviously, over time, you should cultivate some ability to throttle back and forth, and you can figure out how much you can leverage time-wise by doing that, okay? I developed this drill like 10 years ago, and at the time it helped me a lot. I no longer really think about things in terms of sheer effort and pace, but I do still think this is a super valuable drill, like as the last thing you do before you go to a match. It's a good way to kind of get a feel for how hard you should try to go at the match, especially if you don't have a lot of training backing up that experience, right? You get just one day to go practice. This is a great thing to do to prepare yourself, in my opinion. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We have any questions? No. Let's skin targets. But once we consult the WSB, we know where we start, we know the number of rounds, then what do we do?
Find all targets?
Yeah, I would agree. So we find all the targets, and by finding all the targets, you can figure out what all the mandatory positions are. Most of the stages today, it's going to be pretty obvious what the flow is, right? We have basically, we're starting there. We're going to have a mandatory position in the front here for this guy, in the back for that guy, and then basically in both corners, or some blending here. Right? I have to get in this area for this, and I have to do a little rotation to get to here for this target. Okay? So from there, I mean, there's really only going to be one straightest line to get all these done in this case, a very simple stage. Right, so you have to look at what your strategic options are from that point. We're able to decide on what the plan is pretty quickly because there's really only one route. But we have to decide on strategically how much risk we want to take. So we have some movement and blending options we can take. Okay, and if you're comfortable with it, it's really going to be a gut check if you think you can generate the same points on this stuff while moving, because the points are going to be pretty important. What is the hit factor of the stage? What do you think? 8. Probably a pretty good guess, right? 14 times 5 is $120, right? 120 points divided by probably about 10 seconds. Okay, so it's probably going to be around 7 to 8 factor, which means every Charlie is going to cost you 0.3. Okay, so the points are very important. You really can't class up by throttling out using Charlies for the most part. You got to shoot tidy points and get the time you want to class up. It's the easiest way to conceptualize it. Otherwise, it starts to become very gray. So for me, I'll draw. I'm going to try to think about this like I'm stepping in with my left foot to get at this position. So I'll take out this guy. At that point, I'll turn the pedal back as much as I can here. I'll go straight this way. And I'll probably make it about this far. And then I'll step again deep right to free up this target. Okay? I'm not thinking I need to land, if I think about it that way, I don't have to land in a very specific spot here. I just have to get a little bit of distance back. And once I'm basically here or farther, it should work out well. So at that point, as long as those transitions are clean and I connect with the seal the first time, that should work out. Okay, moving across.
Hey, Mason,
Question?
any particular order you'd go in this other than the first one?
Yeah, so I'd just take the front with front part right to left, right? So I'll take out the guy that's compulsory from this position. I'll pedal out on all this stuff.
All that.
So I'll go
right.
quickly, skipper, and then take out this.
Got it.
All right, then when I come over here, you have a little bit of a choice. You can enter on this easy target here and then transition over, or you can just take care of the particular position target first. So because I have to get into a lean, this is a bit of a hard position. I'm probably going to just look where I want my foot to land here. Right? Once I'm positive I'm going to land there, I look up at the target. Use this, and I'll use this target to blend as I rotate around to get at this guy. Okay? So all that stuff we talked about, I'll run over, pause wide, as the target, blend on this target, and finish. Okay? Do we have any questions? So yeah, go ahead.
You hit a C or a D, you take another shot on this shorter stage.
Yeah, if you're aware of it in the moment, but you can't be a perfectionist either. Once it's on paper,
Move
you
on.
can't think about it this way, right? Like we talked about on a 5-factor stage, which this will probably be a little higher than that. A Charlie's going to cost you 0.4.
Right.
How long is it going to take you to identify you have an extra shot and pick it up?
Okay.
Optimistically, best case scenario, 0.2.
Right.
So once you shoot a C, you only stand to gain like 0.2 to 0.3 by picking it up.
Yeah.
Really, once it gets on paper, I'm
You're done.
gonna keep it. I'm only gonna shoot extras on paper.
Even if
I
it's a
think I
D?
missed.
Even if it's a delta.
Yeah, yep. For the most part, unless it's an exceptionally low factor stage, right? I'm just not.
Right.
In that case, the penalty could be up to 0.8, and I could definitely correct that problem.
Right.
all the time. But you'll notice every
Knowing
time
the
I show up to
stage.
a stage, we're gonna ask those questions.
Yep.
You know, how many rounds? What's the mandatory positions? What do we think the hit factor of the stage is with that information?
Yeah, and that gives you.
And that enables you to start making intelligent, strategic
Yeah.
decisions about what you can do. Okay? And let's move on.
Stand by.
Clear, hammer down. Range is clear. Time 760.
Are you ready? Stand by.